Psalm 4. Answer me when I call to you, O God, who declares me innocent. Free me from my troubles. Have mercy on me and hear my prayer. How long will you people ruin my reputation? How long will you make groundless accusations? How long will you continue your lies? You can be sure of this. The Lord set apart the godly for himself. The Lord will answer when I call to him. Don't sin by letting anger control you. Think about it overnight and remain silent. Offer sacrifices in the right spirit and trust the Lord. Many people say, who will show us better times? Let your face smile on us, Lord. You have given me greater joy than those who have abundant harvests of grain and new wine. In peace I will lie down and sleep, for you alone, O Lord, keep me safe. As if you're following with the Bible reading, we're now in the book of Psalms, and I tend to read a psalm a day anyway, so now I'm doubling my psalms, it seems, right now. But I love the Psalms, and the Psalms are poetry. It's the Hebrew book of poetry, but also songs. So they put them to music, but it's basically a type of poetry. And in this psalm especially, in this translation, they put a little thing that says interlude, but it's a word pronounced Selah, and Selah basically means, or Selah, or depending on how you want to say it, when you see that means pause. And so it's really a way of sectioning the poem. So when you see that, it's like we're going to pause and then we're going to continue. And so if you don't put the pauses in, you can misunderstand some things. Also understanding that when you look at your psalm, and most of your Bibles will have this, where the first line is on the left, and then there's a line that gets moved in. You see that? So that's how so generally you have the first line which makes a statement, and then the second line will expand on it or give you a contrast sometimes, or sometimes you'll have two lines that expand on it. So there's structure to the poetry, and sometimes the structure will help you understand it better if you pay attention to the structure. So what I want to do is look at this psalm, and then I'm going to focus in on a verse that the Lord really spoke to me through. So if we look at the first verse, David is crying out to God, "Answer me when I call to you, O God who declares me innocent, or who is my righteousness." That he's not calling out to God based upon, well, I'm good, you need to listen to me because I'm a good person. It's listen to me because you are good, and you're the one that makes me good. And I think there's a big distinction there, because most religions are based upon us achieving something to get God's favor, and that's called paganism, whatever brand you want to put in that. Whenever you see somebody saying, well, I'm good, so therefore God has to do this for me, that's called pagan thinking. It's not a Hebrew or Christian way of thought. God likes us, loves us, pays attention to us, listens to us, because He is good, and He gives us grace and makes us good through our relationship with Him, and no other way. Free me from my troubles. Have mercy on me and hear my prayer. So hear my prayers. Hear me based upon your grace, not based upon my own self-righteousness. It's amazing how God does listen to us. He helps us when we need it. He's gracious. And we call out to Him not because we demand things from Him, but because we understand that He is good and He listens. And then we see that the next line in verse 2, he kind of switches the focus to people. How long will you people, how long will you people do these things? How long will you people ruin my reputation? And it's interesting, you could take this as God's response. And it's kind of, you won't see a lot of agreement. You don't necessarily have to agree. But in a lot of times what you'll see is a dialogue. So first David speaks, and then God responds. And for me, I like to look at this verse as kind of God's response. How long will you people ruin my... How long will you honor yourselves rather than me? How long will you... and other translations, I think, are a little bit better here. How long will you seek empty things is how you could translate. How long will you... So number one, honor yourselves rather than me. Seek things that are empty, that are superficial, not leading anywhere. How long will you continue believing lies? I think when we look at that response to God, we have to think about it. Because now there's an interlude, which I look at and say, stop and think about it. It's another way you could translate that. Stop and ponder for a second. Is your life honoring God? Is it about honoring God or honoring yourself? What are you seeking after? Are you seeking empty things, wealth, fame, or are you seeking Him and a relationship with Him? What are some empty things that people seek rather than God? Money, power, sex, which is kind of tied up in making yourself look better, how other people see you, fame. How about security? You know, fear in our country is a billion-dollar business, making you afraid of things so you buy something to feel more secure. Ring doorbells, and I'm not criticizing you if you have one, but it's totally based on fear that's not really founded, okay? Because if I can make you afraid, I can sell you something to help you feel more secure. I just have this really thing where I don't like to be manipulated, so whenever I feel like somebody's manipulating me, but I mean, we can feel insecure, and so then we can seek other things to make ourselves feel secure, and he'll come back to that later in the psalm. So after our interlude, we move on. He says, you can be sure of this, the Lord will set apart the godly for Himself. The Lord will answer when I call to Him. When we do honor Him, He will set us apart. This is an interesting, belong to Him. He wants you to be His. He wants this belonging relationship. You know, we're built in as human beings with a need to belong. People do a lot of really bad things to belong or to feel like they belong. We want to belong. It's a powerful, powerful thing in our lives. You know what? How gangs are so powerful? Because they give kids and people a place to belong. God says, I want you to belong to me, and I want to belong to you. I want you and me to be an us. And when we belong to Him, He listens. And it's interesting about belonging. why are gangs so powerful? Because these people understand me, right? They have the same kind of background. They understand me. They think the same way. I can relate to them. And God listens to us. And He understands. And He answers us. And then we have this other statement that don't sin by letting anger control you. And he expands on it. Think about it overnight and remain silent. How can you, is being angry sinful? No, Jesus was angry. It's a normal human emotion. Can what we do with it be sinful? Absolutely. We can do a lot of relational damage with our anger. And so what does he recommend that we do instead of being impulsive and lashing out when we're angry? I think it's good advice. I kind of translated this, be self-aware. It literally means lay down and ponder in your soul what's going on. You know that sometimes I get angry because somebody triggered me about something that had very little to do with them. And a lot to do with maybe what somebody did to me in my childhood or a long time ago. And maybe there's certain things that I'm really sensitive about that when somebody does and they press that button even accidentally, I get that feeling. And to take it out on them is probably not a healthy thing, right? So it's good for us when we're angry, when we feel that anger, it's like, well, now why am I angry? Did they press a button? Is there something I need to address with them, or is it something I need to address with me? Because sometimes it's my problem, and sometimes it's their problem, and sometimes it's a little of both. And to step back and say, let me get some perspective on this, and really figure out, we're not in denial. We're not saying, oh, I'm not angry. That doesn't work. We're saying, now why am I angry? Why do I have this feeling? Is it justified, or am I dealing with something? It's interesting how I think it's in the Proverbs where it says, "Don't let the sun go down on your anger." And here he's saying you should sleep on it. I'm not sure what the right thing is, but I know not acting on it right away is probably your best course of action. But then don't let it linger either. I think they're saying the verses aren't contradictory, but they can actually work together. Say, don't act too rashly when you're angry, but don't not deal with it either. Deal with it when you're angry. It's interesting that is put here in the context of this psalm when we're talking about first he talks about seeking empty things and not honoring God but ourselves. And it's interesting that anger is the emotion that God chooses to introduce in here. Because what does anger do to your joy? It's really hard to be joyful and angry at the same time. And I really think that as we go on, we'll see that this psalm is a lot about joy. We'll get there. Hold on. So we have another think about it. And then he goes on, offer sacrifices in the right spirit and trust the Lord. Is he talking about, doing the whole religious thing, sacrificing a bull or a goat or a ram on the altar and doing all. Is that what he's talking about when he's saying offer sacrifices? I think a sacrifice is a sign of a relationship. Often in the Old Testament, the sacrifice was done as a sign of a covenant, an agreement, a relational agreement between two parties. And if we look at it in that sense, it's like when you sacrifice something to God, it should mean something. And the more valuable that thing is to you, the more meaningful what you've done. So it's like, I'm just going to use the marriage relationship because that should be the most intimate human relationship that we have. And when I sacrifice something to be in relationship with my wife, the degree to which that thing is valuable to me, it makes it more meaningful relationally, right? If I say, oh, I'm going to give up liver and onions for you, my dear, because I love you so much. In my particular case, that means absolutely nothing. Because I would gladly give up liver and onions for my worst enemy and feel good about it. If you like liver and onions, more power to you. But it's not something that there are very few foods that I don't like, which is a problem for me, but liver and onions is not one of those things. But now if I said, I'm trying to think what one of my most favorite foods is. I eat a lot of eggs. Eggs are really good for you, by the way. If I said, honey, I'm going to give up eggs for you because I love you, I don't know why I would do that, but it would mean a lot more. My kids were making fun of me yesterday because I eat 2 eggs scrambled for breakfast pretty much every morning. And they're like, how can you eat the same thing every morning, month after month after month? It's like, I don't have to think about it. I just do it. And evidently I'm unusual in this because they're saying, oh, I couldn't stand that. I need more variety. And I'm like, why? So that's just me. As you know, I'm weird. And so if you like variety, that's fine, but I like routine. So, and I don't like to have to sit there and look in the refrigerator. Now, what am I going to have for breakfast this morning? No, I don't have to think about it. I just do it. It works. Anyway, I don't know what that has to do with it. Well, I was talking about sacrifice. How I make the sacrifice, I can do it grudgingly. Oh, I got to do this so you like me, and I can develop resentment in my heart through that. Or I can do it gladly, saying, you are more important to me than whatever this thing is. And then he says, many people say, who will show us better times? I think it's like elections. And I've seen these studies. American elections are not tied to party politics or any of that stuff. You know what American elections are always tied to? Almost exclusively, every time, presidential election, the economy. The incumbent is only reelected if the economy is good. And that's why they do all kinds of things to manipulate the economy right before the elections, right? I mean, gas prices go down, everything is wonderful, right? They do everything they can to make it that way because they know that it doesn't matter what they tell you. It matters how much money you have in your pocketbook and how good you feel. And people treat God that way. Now, it's interesting that we only cry out to God when things are bad, right? But yet, we also expect God to make things good for us all the time. And when things are bad, we complain. But then when they're good, we don't give Him a time of day. And I think what the psalmist is saying, this needs to be out of relationship with him. Good, bad, or indifferent. My relationship with him should be the same, whether my life feels good or not. I shouldn't, people are like, well, if you do this, if you ask God for this, the whole prosperity theology, which really was a bad thing for America, that, if you do this, if you're a Christian, God will make you healthy, wealthy, and wise. But then what happens when you're not? Does that mean you didn't do the right thing? One of the things I absolutely despise the most are people who will go to a sick person and say you're sick because you don't have enough faith, or because you're holding resentment in your heart, and it's like, even if it's true, that's not what you say to a sick person. Sorry. That's just awful. My theology doesn't compute that way. And then he says, let your face smile on us, Lord. What does God look like? Kind of hard, isn't it? Then how can his face smile on us? I think this is a relational analogy for our relationship with God. Because think about it this way, how many of you have grandchildren? A lot of you. I only have a grand dog, and she wiggles and wags her tail when I come home, and it's joyful, but I'm sure it's not the same as having a grandchild. Because if a grandchild, when you see them and they smile and you see each other's faces, and it's like, wow, joy, right? I mean, if it's a good day. Can you think about it? That's what he's saying, that he wants our relationship with God to be like. God's here. Wow, I'm so glad he's here. I'm so glad to be here with him. That's what he's saying. May your face smile on us. Sunday morning should be the most joyful time in our entire week. Because we're together, filled with the Holy Spirit. God's here. We're here. It's fantastic. Lord, make your face smile on us. Joy is better than all the... So you have, you see good, better, and best. Having everything we need and having nice stuff and having a roof over our heads and having all of this is really good, right? I mean, the way God cares for us is wonderful. It is so good. I love indoor plumbing. I don't want to go back to not having indoor plumbing. It's good, right? The cell phones are still a little bit, I'm not quite sure about that. But there are a lot of good things about it. And there's a lot of good things we have. But I'm going to tell you something that you need to remember. If you don't remember anything else from what I've said today, you need to remember this, okay? Are you listening? Relational joy, specifically with God's presence in your life, is better than anything else. God's face smiling on you and being in his presence and going, I don't care what else is happening. This is good. This is not good. This is better. This is best. And when we have that connection with each other, that's a reflection of us being in God's image. And it's actually, so you could look and say, well, that's better. Relationship with God is best. So we kind of get a taste of it when we're joyful with one another. And then he says, you have given me greater joy than those who have abundant harvests of grain and new wine. That, in their day, that meant you're rich. you're prosperous. And he's basically saying the joy that you give me, my relationship with you, in your presence with me, your face is better than anybody who's rich, famous, whatever they think makes them great. Better than a new iPhone, a Tesla, whatever your standard is for what great is in life, it's better than that. And then he gives us kind of the extra benefit in the last verse. In peace I will lie down and sleep. For you alone, O Lord, keep me safe. We have that relationship and that joy, and it just makes everything okay and good. And to be able to lie down and sleep peacefully without all the worries of the world and everything filling your brain and dealing with that is a gift that God wants to give you and giving you peace. And just trusting Him with everything. Do you realize how rare that is today? To be able to do that? To just say, God's got it. I can lie down and I can relax and I can rest and I can know that He's got it and it's okay. He's better than a Ring doorbell. He's better than a security service for your home. He's better than any of these things because ultimately He's in control. So I have a couple things I wrote down here in response to this psalm. What do you want? It's interesting because if you look at the New Testament, when Jesus talks to people, this is a question that He uses as much, if not more than anything else. What do you want? Even people who, you guys blind. What do you want? What do you want me to do? It's like, it's kind of a silly question, right? But He asks it anyway. And what we want is really, if we go back to what we're seeking, are we seeking empty things? Are we seeking stuff that is not really meaningful? Or are we seeking God's presence? What do you want? Because we tend to go for what we want, right? And it's good for us to think about what we want. What do you want? Do you want the joy of God's presence in your life? Do you want to lie down in peace and safety and sleep well? What do you want? I think that's a good place to start. My suggestion is that you seek and want the best. And I'm defining that by the joy of the presence of God in your life. People talk about what heaven's going to be like. And this is my answer. I am going to be so overcome with joy of God's presence that I'm not going to care about anything else. It's interesting, you take that passage in Revelation where he talks about, or I think there's another place too where he talks, it's often translated in the King James that you'll have, he has a mansion prepared for you in heaven. Well, if you look at the Greek, mansion is not really a very good translation into English because really it's a dwelling place in His family. And you realize that most of the culturally in the Old Testament and the New Testament, if you were part of a family, when you had a dwelling place, a place to lie down and sleep, they gave you a mat to sleep on the floor in a room with everybody else. Like how Titus grew up. Now, some of you are going, well, that's going to be a real downgrade for me. But what I'm going to say is this, it doesn't matter. Because we are going to be so caught up in God's presence and that joy that you could give me a mat on the floor. And it won't hurt to sleep on the floor anymore if it is, because I'll have a better body that doesn't respond like mine does to that. But we're going to be so filled with God's joy of His presence that we're not going to care about whether we get to play golf or whatever people think heaven is like. Personally, I think golf is the game they play in hell, not the game they play in heaven. You know, you're gonna hit it and it's just gonna not ever really go right, just enough to keep you playing, but not good enough to say that you accomplished anything, kind of like playing golf for most of us is. And in heaven, if they have golf in heaven, you're going to hit it the first time and it's going to go in the hole. And who wants to do that all day? It just doesn't make any sense to have golf in heaven. Anyway, that's just a bonus for you. You can think about what's in heaven. But I think what is in heaven is God's presence and His face smiling on us. And you know what's really cool about that is we can come on Sunday morning and we can be together and we can smile at each other and we can experience God's presence, and we're getting a piece of heaven. We're getting a piece of heaven. Seek your piece of heaven now. Seek what you can get now. Let's pray. Father, I thank you that you so desire to be with us. I thank you that you so desire to be with us, that you came, humbled yourself in Jesus, suffered and died for us, simply that we might have the privilege of being in your joyful presence and being transformed into people that reflect that to others. Help us to seek the best in life, and that's you. Help us to not be distracted by the empty, meaningless things of the world. And we thank you and praise you this morning in Jesus' name. Amen. I forgot my remote. Let's stand, and I'm going to start this and disconnect the